Inspiring the next generation of engineers can be a tough task, especially when you're trying to teach girls or any young kids. In this edition of Someone to Know, our John Thomas Kobos introduces us to one woman who's raising the bar.
Zoraida Basaldu is all about empowering our youth, especially girls.
For me, it's really just, mentoring and being a good role model for the young ladies.
This immigrant from Mexico will be the first to tell you she came from very little.
We moved here when I was 10 years old, and so I really started from zero.
That is why Basaldu uses her spare time to show girls her path to becoming an engineer.
One day it just kind of clicked, like, do I want to be filing papers and answering phone calls for the next 30 years?
So she applied and was accepted to a South Texas engineering program.
Really, it was a drive and determination that led me to the school in Kingsville, led me to finish my degree, led me to drive to Kingsville 1 hour every day.
For the last 12 years, Basaldu has worked on Refinery Row as a processing engineer, a field heavily dominated by men. Her love for visiting with the next generation of engineers has led to the creation of her nonprofit.
I think that planting the seed in the young minds early enough and for them to explore those career options is really what can drive a change in this field.
Basaldu encourages all women in their professional fields to reach out to the next generation of younger girls and share their passion. Reporting, John Thomas Kobos, 3 News.